And I'm going to read the wonderful script for virtual meetings. So just get your second cup of coffee if you need to. Good morning. Welcome to the GAE-Retired Lunch Bunch. While we welcome all public school employees, this event is only for GAE members and GAE staff. Therefore, if you are not a GAE member or GAE staff, please sign in by putting your name, personal email address, cell phone number, and school system, if applicable, in the chat to me, Karen Solheim. While we appreciate your interest in GAE, we hope you will join our organization today by visiting GAE.org. Everyone, please note that you must receive prior permission from the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director before recording audio, video of this meeting. Social media posts concerning this meeting shall not contain information about the specific content, although the general sharing of information about GAE and GAE events is encouraged. Please be courteous to other attendees and request their permission before posting photographs containing their images. If you have any questions about social media posting of GAE events, please contact the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director. And again, so glad everybody is here today. I'm excited. It's always great when our Director of Government Relations is on the call. And Joe, so glad you're here to get day. Yay. And we were chatting earlier, and Joe said we're in day 12 of 40. So y'all can do the math. We are not even halfway through yet, but I can hardly wait to hear everything, Joe, that you have to share about what the craziness or not that's happening down at the General Assembly.
Oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. It's always great to be with GAE-Retired and with you. We are on the 12th day of the legislative session. I think most of all of you know that the days aren't consecutive, the legislative days. They usually are in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Monday, sometimes Friday. But by April 2nd, when they adjourn, they will have completed 40 days. So it'll get here sooner than we realize. So they every year begin the session on the second Monday in January. That was January 12th. So they went in session that week. The first week, it's largely ceremonial, housekeeping type stuff, swearing in of new members. But one of the most important things that week is that the governor gives his annual State of the State address. And that was kind of interesting this year. Not a lot of stuff to be concerned about. I was a little surprised and grateful that he has included a $2,000 bonus for educators in his budget. Now, I'd much rather have a salary step increase for those that have or on a salary step. I'd rather also have an ESP salary schedule, but I did not expect him to do that. So that is $2,000. So every year the governor presents two budgets. One is
Joe, I'm going to interrupt you. Do you want questions as you go, or you want questions at the end?
no, I like them as we go because it's a small
So
enough group.
is
Yeah.
it not true that the $2,000 for certified employees is not for all certified employees? And do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, there's
Thanks.
some caveats to this $2,000. First of all, it is only for state-funded positions. So if your position is funded by federal dollars or even purely local dollars, you're probably not going to get one. We were unclear at the beginning whether our school bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and other ESPs would be included, but Superintendent Woods has said several times publicly, including at the House Appropriations Committee meetings, that ESPs would be included. What I don't have confirmation on yet is whether they'll be getting $2,000 or a lesser amount. And the reason I interject that possibility is because they have gone with this approach before, where instead of a permanent salary increase, they've done what they call sometimes supplements. And those supplements were, I believe, a few years ago, excuse me, $2,000 for classroom teachers and $1,000 for ESPs. So We're still trying to work through the details. Appropriations meets today. So hopefully we'll have more details on that. But every year the governor introduces two budgets. One is any adjustments to the current year budget, and we're in the 2025-2026 state budget. That it ends on June 30th, pretty much like a school year. Doesn't start January 1, starts July 1. This bonus is a part of this year's current budget, added money for that purpose. So if everything goes correctly, that bonus should be received before the end of June of this year. So that's one thing worth noting. And as we get more details on what they're exactly going to do, we certainly will pass that along. As I said, Superintendent Wood has testified probably 3 times now before the budget writers. And again, he confirmed that ESPs will be getting a bonus. And we'll find out again on what that will be. Kemp is also planning to fully fund QBE again. To his credit, I think 7 years of his time in office, they fully funded QBE. But I want to add this caveat: fully funding QBE does not mean that our schools and students are adequately funded. It just means that they haven't cut back on the funding formula, and they've done that. They've cut it back before in times of economic difficulty. But so he takes pride in the fact that QB is fully funded. He's also proposed something, and we've not seen a hearing on this yet, but something that is in our legislative priorities, and that is a needs-based Hope Scholarship. We've been talking about that for a while. I think it's been in our legislative priorities for a while. So we're delighted to see that a Hope-based type, a Hope type scholarship that he's planning to fund. He's got more money for construction and renovation of schools and facilities, and a few $1 million to continue to try to reduce pre-K class sizes. The governor's also, and we should spend some more money on this, but there was a time where the state funded almost all pupil transportation costs. That went way down under Sonny Perdue. But he does have $39 million in there for new school buses and for the QB transportation park. One of the big issues this session is a battle between priorities over taxation. The governor wants to send $1 billion in tax rebates back to folks. $1 billion sounds like a ton of money. Comes out to about $250 though. For the average single filer and $500 for a married couple. There are those, and he also has a plan to phase out and lower the state income tax. Last week, the House Speaker came out with a plan, and this is pretty concerning, but a plan to eliminate property taxes. And the Senate passed a bill yesterday to cap property taxes. And again, I think everyone on this call understands that property taxes are one of the primary sources for our public education funding in the state. They're levied locally, and without that money, I don't know how some schools would exist. So there is this infatuation with trying to lower the state personal income tax and trying to lower or eliminate the property tax. Something that needs to be watched very closely, because losing that funding would have a serious and unfortunate impact on our schools, on our teachers, on our communities. So keep that in mind as you're excuse me, following what's going on in the session. Losing my voice, Karen. You can take over right now.
But I will
Any
ask
questions
a
so far?
question on the property tax. Is like, is there a message going out to start contacting legislators to say, bad idea, follow the
Yeah.
trail on this and what it means for public ed?
Not yet, but that could happen. I'll have to confess, I'm a little skeptical that they can pass an elimination of property taxes. For example, I've talked about the impact it might have on schools, but also firefighters, police personnel, and I'm not sure there are enough Republicans to go for a full elimination of property taxes. I just think there are too many constituencies that would be harmed by that. Now they may try to lower it, and the Senate did put a cap on property taxes, but they can't do it all. There's not enough money to fund the state budget if you try to do both those things, in my opinion. So I don't. I want you to be aware of the situation, but I don't want to create alarm yet. But we're on top of it, and certainly aware of how it impacts our community. Yeah. So that's kind of some of the major news from the governor. Uh, Literacy education, especially in early grades, it continues to be a big issue. It's become a high priority of Republicans in the Senate and House, and Democrats support that effort. Um, the House Speaker is advocating, and again, you need funding to do this, but a literacy coach in every public elementary school in the state. So that's another thing in the budget that we'll be looking at. The Superintendent Woods has said he wants an SRO in every public school in the state. And then one of the other big education issues that's being debated and will be heard in committee tomorrow is a ban on students' use of cell phones in high school. 2 years ago, they passed a ban in grades K through 8. They wanted to kind of phase in, I guess, for high school students so they could get used to it. But that's got a lot of momentum behind it. And I'm sure they'll make a lot of educators very happy because of the distraction it creates in the classroom. Woods is also calling to raise teacher salaries by $10,000 within 5 years. We certainly would support that and more. He wants to extend the state salary schedule beyond 20 years of service so that pay raises could go into effect after you have 20 years of service, and establish a salary schedule for ESPs. Those are ideas he's mentioned when he's spoken to our day at the Capitol before, but to hear them articulated in a public forum like House Appropriations is important. And those are issues that we support. They're all part of our legislative priorities. So looking forward to that. I want to talk about 2026 a little bit in the sense that it is an election year. U.S. Senator John Ossoff is up for reelection. The governor is term limited, so we will be electing a new governor in November of 2026. Richard Woods is running again for state school superintendent, but he's got opposition and primary opposition. All congressional seats, of course, up every 2 years. All legislative seats, Senate and House, all 435, 236, 435 Congress are up. And it's a hugely important year. And Karen, to your discussion about ICE earlier, this is a golden opportunity, I believe. We are starting to see, and I think you kind of touched on it talking about ICE. There are independents and Republicans who voted for Trump who wanted change, but they didn't want chaos. And we're seeing more and more polling. In fact, his polling numbers at the lowest of his entire presidency, including his first term. So what's going to be interesting to watch will be, are there enough independents and Republicans who will vote for Ossoff, to reelect Ossoff, or to elect one of the Democrats as governor? And if they did, that would be an opportunity for a lot of changes. We have a lot of bad bills at the General Assembly. Having that kind of backup would help in the sense that we wouldn't pass voucher bills if we had a scenario where Democrats had a chamber, Senate or House, or the governor's race. So the elections this coming year are going to be really important. They always are. People always say this is the most important election of my lifetime, but it is a big one here in Georgia. And one of the things about an election year also is that there's so many legislators running for higher office. Uh, some for attorney general, some for governor. And as long as they're in the legislature, they cannot fundraise during that time. So some of them have resigned their seats, like Jason Estes, his former state senator, resigned his seat so he can fundraise and carry out what he wants to do in his campaign for governor. And there are others too. Then we've had, on top of that, we've had 3 legislators who've been indicted for misuse of COVID unemployment aid back in the day, and that's created special elections in 2 of the. Well, we'll have created special elections in 2 of them, and then we've had a death. So we've had a really large number of special elections going on. You may be aware that we've got a special election in Marjorie Taylor Greene's congressional seat up in Northwest Georgia. That's created some resignations as well. So it's kept us kind of busy going on. So we've got one special election coming up on February 17th in the central part of Georgia. If you're in Crawford, Monroe, Peach, Upson, and parts of Bibb and Houston counties, there's a special election going on there. Again, February 17th. When we do special elections in Georgia, all candidates are on the ballot together. There is no Republican primary. There is no Democrat primary. All of candidates appear on one ballot. And in the case of this State Senate District 18 in central Georgia, we have a runoff now between the Democrat Lamario Brown and a Republican. So that's coming up soon. Up in Northwest Georgia, State Senator Colton Moore resigned his seat. And by the way, questionnaires have gone out to all these candidates, and locals have been notified that we'd like them to conduct interviews with an eye toward making an endorsement. But Colton Moore has resigned his seat. That's Chattooga, Dade, Walker, parts of Catoosa and Floyd County. And Moore, as I said earlier, is running for the congressional seat. This is kind of an interesting seat too. It reportedly is the 40th most Republican congressional district in the country. It's pretty solid red up there. But we've got 22 candidates running. 17 of them are Republicans, 3 of them are Democrats, and 1 Libertarian. And when they're all on the ballot together, those Republicans are going to cannibalize each other, so that there's a real possibility you could have a Democrat and Republican in the runoff for this congressional seat. And that changes things a lot because turnout is not as strong in runoff elections, special elections. We've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene moderate a little bit herself. So I'm really kind of fascinated to see this. And there's a really good brigadier general who looks to be like the leading Democrat up there in this race. So that's going to be interesting. We've got a special election in parts of DeKalb and Gwinnett County for State Representative Karen Bennett's Senate. We've got one in Augusta for Lynn Hefner's State House district. So there's a lot going on with elections this year, and it has a significant impact on even our life at the Capitol, because you got people, running for office who, in the case of the Georgia State Senate, for example, you got 5 Republicans in the state Senate that are running for statewide office, and they're each trying to out MAGA each other, and get their agenda across. So kind of interesting impact. So let me take a break and see if anybody does have any questions.
Well, I hate to monopolize. So Richard, you go and then I'll monopolize again. I have a question.
I've just got a question about, on the governor's race with Burt Jones ads that's been going through the state, and nobody
Yeah,
knows where the money's coming from. I find that very interesting. And
I don't know.
also, how how true are those accusations of everything that he's done down in those counties? Is that pretty on spot on?
I kind of missed that last part. I'm sorry.
On the ad itself, it talks about everything he's done down there to finance himself and his family. Is all that pretty much true?
I have not seen this ad. It must be running everywhere because I know people talk about it all the time, but it doesn't show up when I'm watching CNN or Fox News or whatever. I have not seen it yet. He
That's
has a
probably why
ton
you
of
don't
money.
see.
Yeah, I should be. It's anyway. I haven't seen it, so I couldn't comment on that. But that there are some that would say he's tried to enrich himself through his position as lieutenant governor. He pushed for a certificate of need bill that would allow them to um, change uh, the licensing for hospitals, the establishment of hospitals. But I really don't know the details on that. I'm kind of in my own little world at the Capitol, trying to follow what's going on legislatively. So not sure about the campaign yet. We'll get there.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
And my question was back to the property taxes. I mean, and the possible reduction slash limit, isn't that in the Project 2025 playbook in terms of, because aren't there other states trying to lower property taxes, and then the trickle down is, we're dismantling public education, and
Yeah.
then we have the haves and the have-nots and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of those kind of bills statewide. Whether it comes directly out of the 2025 playbook or not, I really couldn't say. But, you know, Republicans always have thought of themselves as tax cutters. So whether it's income tax or property tax, but for our purposes, the property tax could be really devastating. You put on top of that too proposals out of Washington to cut the U.S. Department of Education, to defund it. That also is something to be concerned about, especially when we look at the 2026 2027 budget. The money for this year has been, so to speak, sent down. It's next year, and if there are major cuts in federal funding for education, that becomes a problem. We've got a county in Georgia, Macon County, 40% of their funding for their schools comes from the federal government. So you have all these cuts, federal government, maybe property tax, maybe income tax, and an economy that's still, I don't know, people still kind of think it's not as stable as they want it to be. So I'm worried that in 5 years we're going to be like, oh my gosh, what have we done? We've left our schools and our kids with nothing. And I guess I don't want to create panic, but it makes me worry about things like furloughs. And, if the economy were to really turn south, boy, I could see that house of cards collapsing. Anything else? Did I get that link in there for Day at the Capitol?
You did.
So, let me just mention our Day at the Capitol again. It's March 5th. I think that's a Thursday. We're going to start at about 8 a.m. We usually end about 2 p.m. We are at a point where in the last several years, we've just about had more people attend than the fire marshal will let in. There are not a lot of facilities within a walk of the Capitol that can accommodate how many people we've been drawing to our Day at the Capitol, which is close to 300 people. And I'm really grateful for that, because Day of the Capitol is very important. It shows quantity, and it shows, by the way, I'm going to need to make a note to myself. What are we going to do on t-shirts this year, Karen? It shows quantity and quality. Legislators of all stripes come out outside the chamber, talk to our members about issues. So I would encourage you to attend, and it would be Well, we could be in a situation where, particularly if the weather cooperates, it could be first come, first serve, because we just can't get any more people in there. I don't mean that to discourage you from coming. I'm just saying get your reservations in early. Once you do register, you will get an email about expenses that GAE might pay. We have in the past paid for those who drive from quite a distance to be with us down there. But it's going to be a great day. And like I said, links in the chat, and I hope you'll sign up and plan to be there. All right, let me get some notes in front of me. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Karen, I lost a window.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
You're doing that. Isn't the legislative contact team also? Let me see what I have on my calendar.
17th, I think.
Yes.
I have a link for that somewhere too, but I'll have to dig that up. So I do want to talk about retirement issues though, Karen, because we
Great.
actually have some bills coming up um, that we support. Um, you may be familiar with the program in Georgia that allows educators who've been retired for 1 year and who have 30 years of experience to return to the classroom in subject areas that are difficult for schools to fill, special education, for example. Um, it is a good program, but unfortunately, at the time that it passed, there were some who thought, oh my goodness, we can't have this. Some teachers are going to get rich drawing their retirement benefits and a salary. So they put the restriction, for example, that only teachers with 30 years experience can participate. Well, the Senate is hearing a bill, SB 150. Oh, by the way, the program I just described expires this year. So for the program itself to continue, we would have to have legislation that continues the program. So we do. We actually have a bill in the House and one in the Senate. Senate Bill 150 lowers the years of service to 25. Doesn't say you can retire at 25 with full retirement. It says to be eligible for this program, you have to have at least 25 years service. And then it takes away from RESAs the identification of the subject areas that are difficult to find and puts it with the school district, which I think it makes a lot more sense. So that's one TRS related bill that is moving through the process. You have heard, you've probably heard me or Lisa talk before about our work to get a meaningful retirement benefit for our ESPs. Um, up until 2 years ago, their retirement benefits were capped in state law. They use a formula to establish their monthly benefit. And at the time, it was $16.50 times years of service. And once you've ran all the numbers, the average monthly benefit in retirement was about $290. So we were able to get rid of that cap and create a floor of $17. So the current formula is $17 times years of service. Well, that's still terrible. A 50-cent increase. I mean, how much is that going to impact somebody's retirement? So the monthly benefit now is about $303 a month. Still, just it scares me to think how people could possibly live on that. Some of these ESPs are working in school districts that are not paying into Social Security for them. And school systems, even if they opted out of Social Security for classroom teachers, they must either offer a meaningful retirement plan for staff or pay into Social Security. And some are doing neither. So that amount of retirement is pretty much all they've got. Now, I don't know about you, but when my kids were in school, the school bus driver was there before the sun rose and home sometimes after the sun set. I don't know when they would have time to have a job that pays any meaningful retirement benefits. Well, they may have time for a second job, but it's not going to be one that pays anything toward their toward their retirement years. So we've been working on this issue of the state pension for our ESPs for several years now. There is a bill, and there was interest both in the House and the Senate in the last couple of years that would allow ESPs to join the TRS. Their plan is ESP plan is called the Public School Employees Retirement System, and that's the plan that pays about $300 a month in retirement. ESPs contribute $10 a month to that. So we have this bill that if they wanted to, they could join TRS, and they would have to pay 6% of their salary to do so. We support the bill, although I'm a little concerned that not that many may be even able to afford 6% of their salary. But that is a bill that's getting some traction in the Senate, so we'll be looking on forward to that. That is most all the retirement bills we've got for this year. Many of you know that retirement bills that have a fiscal impact on TRS or PSERS are required to be 2-year bills. That means they're introduced in 1 year. They are sent out for an actuarial study and review, and then they come back the next year and are eligible to be passed then. We're in the second year of that phase. So if a bill didn't get introduced last year that materially impacts TRS, then we're not going to hear it this year because it has to go through that kind of process. Another bill that we're working on is to try to provide compensation for our student teachers. Skylar Nunley has done a terrific job with the Aspiring Educator Program. We've been growing our numbers among students every year. Other states have been doing this for a while, and some more recently have started doing it. But we've got these kids in college programs full-time, working in their student teaching school full-time, and some trying to have another job full-time just to finance it all. So we've got a bill and a meeting coming up with our House sponsor to provide some sort of compensation for our educators who are planning a career in education. Now, Elisa Morgan, our president, said this before, and that we've got many students in education programs across the state of Georgia that are not even going into education because they're financially better off picking a job in another field. So if we want to address the ongoing educator shortage and attract high quality people to education, I think this is the kind of program that can be meaningful and help to do that. So that's another thing we're working on. I mentioned before the cell phone ban in high school, that almost certainly is going to pass. There continues to be a lot of school safety legislation. We had the shooting in Appalachia a couple of years ago. We've had other campus shootings, and legislators continue to look for ways to keep students safe. There is a bill that came up this week in the House Education Subcommittee that requires metal detectors at all school entrances. Cobb County school system testified that they've got one school with 46 exterior entries. So, they're trying to provide a safe environment for kids to learn, but the cost of putting metal detectors at every door just could be astronomical. So, legislators can continue to kind of work through school safety issues. And retirement. 7, 8. Sorry.
Well, you're looking at a question.
Yeah.
Well, and so a waiver bill to waive waivers, and could, like with the cell phone ban, and could that be waived? Like, could a school system waive the
Yeah,
high school?
the way the bill is constructed, Karen, it actually requires school district to have a policy, and that policy must basically prevent students from using their cell phone there. So that can be true. That could be true. It could be waived. I mean, they can waive almost anything they want. So that, yeah, I think that definitely could be waived. I mean, we've got all sorts of laws that people ignore all the time, class sizes and whatnot. And we were able to get a study committee this year, last year, to study waivers. If you're not familiar with the issue, it's a very bizarre situation in Georgia. The legislature can pass bills, the governor can sign them pertaining to public education, but then the school system can just basically tell the state board of education, we're not going to follow that class size requirement, or we're not going to require physical education time, or planning period time is another one that gets waived a lot. So yeah, could be. The other thing I haven't mentioned, Karen, is vouchers. So I know it never goes away. So 2 years ago, we, with a coalition of rural Republicans, stopped a voucher bill from becoming law, and that was a great day. The year after, by one vote, they got the voucher bill passed. So it went into effect this year. What's interesting, though, is last year the governor, in his budget, asked legislators to set aside $40 million to pay for these private school scholarships, is what they call them, vouchers. The Senate wanted to do 140 million. Eventually, the House and Senate agreed on 141 million, and it went to the governor, and he signed it for 141 million dollars. That amount of money would have funded 20,000 what they call promise scholarships, vouchers. But what we found out recently is that only 7,000 families or 7,000 students have even taken advantage of the voucher program. So they vastly overfunded the program, vastly overestimated the interest in participating in the program. So one of the other things that you see in Kemp's mid-year budget adjustment is cut of 86 million from the private voucher program. So it'll be interesting to follow that too. But right now, it doesn't seem to have the spectacular success that some were expecting it to have. Let's see if I've got what else I got.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes. So if they cut that money, where do you think that they would place the surplus?
Well, the state already has a huge surplus. There are requirements that they put a certain percentage of reserves into the rainy day fund, if you will. But they got to, they might use the savings of 86 million to fund their income tax cut, or any other program that they want to. The tragedy about vouchers, or one of the tragedies about vouchers to me, is that the kids that are left behind are left behind in a much worse situation with fewer dollars, and in a student body that probably is more expensive to educate. And the resources just aren't there. We ought to be turning that money back into the kids that are still in our public schools, and stop spending it on private schools. And by the way, the average recipient of these vouchers is in the metro Atlanta, is male and white. So I kind of go back to my thoughts about the elections. If we want to make some real change in Georgia, we've got to make some changes there too.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Karen, that's kind of my list. Happy to banter about anything else.
Well, I hope other people will ask questions, but I enjoy having Joe here and being able to ask my questions. So please join me in asking. With the return to work and bill, and letting teachers go at 25 years and opening up the field so it's not RISA critical areas. I mean, that's better than what the bill was at 30 with RISA. But what's the harm in then at some point in the future opening it up to any retired teacher who wants to return? I mean, why? I know there's baby steps happening, and I've heard the rhetoric of legislators up in arms because retired educators are going to get rich by returning to work. I mean, which is horse feathers. So, um, at some point, do you see it going even lower than 25? Because from TRS, we know that the average number of years that a retired educator has in TRS is 25. That's the average. So that means there aren't that many people going to 30, and there are an equal number of people below the 25. Okay, I've framed my question. I'll stop.
All right, I'm losing my voice too. You can tell I've been talking too much. So one of the things that we were hoping would change in these bills was the requirement that you be in retirement for 1 year. I'm not a math guy, but if they said you only have to be retired for a month or 6 months, that triggered a cost to TRS that neither TRS nor the legislators were comfortable with. I don't remember what the price tag was, but for some reason there was a need to have them out for a year before, rather than reducing the time in retirement to qualify for the program. So I don't envision a kind of universal return to work situation. I think if we can still increase the pool of qualified educators, that would be good. Right now, only about 700 educators have taken advantage of the program, and the needs and vacancies are greater than that. So we will continue looking at other ways to attract people to our profession, attract qualified, good people to our profession. But I don't see that becoming a universal situation where anybody with 10 years of service could qualify. Hey, sir.
Yeah, Joe, like my situation was I had enough sick days to have like 26 years,
Mm-hmm.
but due to some mishap of accounting, uh, they were supposed to just calculate it 6 more months for me to have exactly. So I've got like 24 point something something, but they paid me my money, through my school system, which I lost money, but that's neither here or there because there was a situation going on with a lot of people uh, being laid off from the system and my retirement sitting on somebody's desk for 4 months. So, there are different situations, but at some point, it could even be, we don't have to be there full time. It could be at random for a short period of time just to fill in the cracks, just as a regular substitute. There are ways of doing it. They just don't want to open it up to that because, like you say, they think that we'll be double dipping or whatnot.
Right.
And yet, you're leaving quality educators out there who could help, who could just stop this gap if you used it the right way, but they haven't thought that far on it.
Good point. Well, Karen, I don't mean to cut your lunch short. What are you serving today?
It's the virtual cafeteria.
I saw Tammy's on the call. I don't know if she has any announcements for the good of the order or.
Well, I put the link in the chat to the legislative
See that.
contact team on February 17th. And again, that's open to anybody, and you get to hear more and know more. And Tammy, you unmuted, and now you muted back, but Tammy unmuted and speak.
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm on my desk computer, so I don't have a camera on that. But I just popped on today to say hello. I always appreciate being invited, and it's just a way to make sure, I know what's going on and to be available if there's anything I can do to help and support you. I know you have a great liaison in Renita, but I am always available as well.
And Tammy, do you want to share your official title or job description for people who don't know?
Yes, so I am the Director of Field Services. So I work with, we actually have 10 positions. We have 9 Uniserv staff right now. Our 10th person, which will fill Tyler's position in the East Metro area. So Gwinnett, APS, that area. His name is Jan. He begins on February 17th. And then I also oversee the 2 organizers that work they're on a grant, and it's maximizing the metro. And so they have 10 different school districts in the metro that they work with, and we plan together, and that's all going really well too.
I just
Great.
want to note, she said Tyler, not Skylar. Skylar's not going anywhere.
Yes. Tyler was with us, and he went back to Kentucky. He felt he needed to be closer to family. There was some stuff going on there, and so that's been a vacancy that's been open for a while. But out of respect for our colleagues, Jan comes with Uniserv experience from 2 states, and his current state has a 60-day policy in their contract when you actually resign from a position. So we were respectful of that. So that's why it's taken a little while. But the great thing about Jan too is he actually used to be a former educator in APS. So he knows the area, he knows that district in particular, and we're excited for him to get started on the 17th.
Great.
Any other questions or comments for Joe? Richard?
I've got one. Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Going back to the Senate Bill 150. A few years ago, I was gonna go back and teach, but they didn't. They said I need to get those 30 hours back in. How's that going to happen? Are they going to waive that for people who no longer are certified, currently certified?
Let me check on that before I give an answer. I'm, it's a good question. Karen may know the answer to that more than I do.
I
Let me
do
check.
not.
I'll see what I can find out.
Because to go back, like I don't have my certificate anymore. So if I wanted to go back, I don't know how I would get certified. That is interesting.
I would think, well, we do have school districts that have waivers for certification. So, once again, back to waivers. So I guess they could put in a waiver that says we're going to hire other than certified educators. Yeah, I'll check on that.
Thank you. And we'll put it out in GAE communications. Any
Yeah.
other questions before I do announcement kinds of things? Joe,
Well, thank you, guys, and thanks for
yeah.
bearing with my voice and drippy nose and all the fun things that are going on here.
Well, heartfelt thanks for being here and for all you do for these 40 grueling 40 days of hell in terms of yes, you go through the gut grind with this. So thank you so much for being here. Let me just share screen for a minute. I really like sending people to this lovely little link, mobilize.us/GAE, which is how you signed up to get here today. And while I'm thinking of it, if you're not getting Joe's legislative update alerts on days, pretty much days that the legislature meets, it means your information is not current in the GAE database. And so you just need to you have to just memorize all of these. GAE.org update. And you'll want to go through, and I think there's a drawing too that even if you think your information is correct, please put it in the GAE.org update and hit submit so that you can't do something about something going on unless you're receiving the information. So speaking of information, at mobilize.usgae, you can go through and you can see the upcoming things that are happening. And you can see that we have some district meetings coming up. And as retired members, with the graphic is a map, you can see what district you're in. If you don't know, you're more than welcome not only to attend GAE retired meetings, but also district meetings. And so if you want to know what's going on, and Cyril, did I interrupt you?
No, I was just
Okay.
saying God bless you. God bless you.
Oh, thank you. And we're having, if you know some people who are in the classroom, I'm doing a workshop on our GAE foundations and our grant, the free money coming up this on Valentine's Day morning. So, free money is a good thing to go through and share with individuals who are thinking about becoming GAE members. Here's the link to the legislative contact team. Lisa's having a president summit for all the local presidents. We continue, Skylar, to do the GACE workshops. And again, District 2 meeting. We're doing a Rights at Night. GA is on legal FAQs, so you might want to attend that. But I'm doing all this to get to, we got GA-Retired virtual day at the Capitol. So it's on the Thursday before the GAE day at the Capitol. This will be virtual, be an hour on Zoom, and we'll go through and just talk through logistics, make sure everybody's good for GAE day at the Capitol. And then next month on the lunch bunch, we're going through and we have ways to age healthy. So we can all use that regardless of we're 17 or 70. And then GAE-Retired's having an informational meeting on the first Friday in March. Again, these are virtual. Some more PD in your PJs, and the GAE-Retired pre-retirement seminar at the end of March. And again, this is a good piece to share with members and non-members. It's open to potential members within 5 years of retirement. And we all know, having been retired, if that's our current status, that retiring is not just an easy thing to do. A lot of information. And for me, the more I could have heard it, the more successful I would have been in making good decisions about retirement. I also share, and it's on the Mobilize us.gae link, that GAE-Retired will have its all-member conference in person on April 17th. And that'll be at the Airport Renaissance Hotel, because on the 19th and 18th, why don't I put those in correct order? On April 18th and 19th, we will have the GAE Spring RA. And if you submitted your name to be a delegate to the RA, GAE-Retired will be voting March 1st through 15th for delegates. And we hope to field our entire group of 40 delegates to the spring RA. And other than that, I'll stand for questions if anybody has any questions that I think we may or may not be able to answer. Anybody? Richard?
Karen, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to the RA, when can we call in to make reservations at the hotel? Do you know yet?
I do not know, but Vivian was on here, and Dr. Doe. I don't mean to single people out, but see if Vivian's still here. She is one of our board members. And Sharon, are you within striking distance to answer? Vivian, oh yeah, you're still here too. Either one of you, did you discuss that at the GAE board meeting this past weekend? See if anybody will answer me.
No, not that I can. No, I'm not familiar with that
Okay,
information.
thanks. So Richard, as soon as, we hear, and the all-member conference team will be reaching out to Nicholas for our needs for the all-member we'll ask, and as soon as that gets open, it'll go out into GAE retired communications.
Okay.
So great question. And I'm trying to find one more piece to share with you all, because I know there's always the thing of trying to make sure we get GAE retired gets in the host hotel. And
Right.
and there are a couple
Exactly.
and not over to the side. Let me see what's in the chat. And Tammy says hasn't heard anything, and Sharon says it wasn't discussed. So that's a to be continued on that. And let me just share one more piece before we close out. Share is if you want to know more about what is going on with GAE Retired, I've mentioned the Mobilize link. We also have a GAE Retired calendar. You should be getting In the Loop, which is our monthly, sometimes twice a month newsletter. The GAE Retired Facebook page. You could like us on Facebook if you're using Facebook. We'll have a section in the GAE No magazine, and then we have information in the monthly GAE Voices. So there's a lot of ways, in my humble opinion, to go through and to be getting GAE information and GAE retired information, but it's not going to necessarily end up in your lap unless you go through and read the information if it gets delivered in your inbox. And last thing is we will be doing our Books and Bears initiative at the Spring RA. So start gathering up those teddy bears and books. We'll donate to a local school in the area where we have GAE member presence. So it's always a nice, fluffy win-win kind of initiative. So, other comments, questions, complaints, criticisms, compliments? Thank you so much for being here today, and I hope to see you on March 4th, if not before, and we'll see if we have snow between then and now. Vivian, you unmuted.
Oh.
No? Okay. Well, thank you, friends, for being here, and thank you for everything you do for GAE and GAE Retired. And we will gather together soon, I hope. Y'all have a
Thank you.
great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye, y'all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
love.
You have emerged.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you have.
Thank
You have
you.
yes, you have.
All right.
Thank you.